Welcome to the first session of Design United's conference, Small Measures, Great Impact. The speakers for this session are Goy Zenru, Principal of Goy Architects Singapore, Realrit Sajaref of Raw Architecture Indonesia, and the team of 8 at Compartment S4, a collaborative from India. This session is being compared by Sakshi Chawla, a student from India, and moderated by architects Vaishnavi Shukl from Ahmedabad, India, and Huzefa Haroon from Karachi, Pakistan. Compartment S4 is a collaborative of 8 young Indian architects who seek to provide sophisticated design solutions in both the formal and informal sectors of India.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for joining today at early morning, and also thank you Design United for inviting us. So in our team, me and Aman will be presenting, and the rest will be joining for the panel discussion.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. Thank you, Varna, and the entire DU team. It's a real honor to be here and present our work amongst so many notable architects. So yeah, we're Compartment S4. I'm going to start with this image of us working at CEPT. This is our space, and this was where it all began. And it was a small sort of, we called it a khopcha, and we used to sit there, and this is how we started thinking about what we wanted to do as architects, and how we wanted to how somehow all of us aligned to the idea of working for the public and working for the people. Um, there were a lot of ideas at that point, and so we somehow we together consolidated it into these three sort of main ideas. One of the main idea was about having a systemic approach towards problem solving, which meant we looked at architecture through a lens of solving issues, but in a more systematic manner. Large resultant impact regardless of the scale, which meant regardless of the scale of the project, or whether it's a big or small or project, or sometimes it's not even exactly architecture, but the scale would not matter much, but the impact would. And contextual programming that was aimed at activating spaces. So the idea was because all of us had traveled quite a bit in the around the Indian subcontinent, we knew the amount of spaces that are already being built but were not activated, and we wanted to sort of focus on the idea of how we could use the existing infrastructure and existing built forms to also just reactivate it through contextually programming it. So all of these three ideas sort of came together for us as our method of looking at a bottom-up approach to architecture. And the idea of bottom-up approach essentially became uh, how we looked at our practice and how we started looking at architecture in general. And that's how Compartment S4 came. So Compartment S4 is right now we're 8 of us. This is our studio space. It's a small space right in the middle of Ahmedabad, and it's a small very cozy sort of workspace. We work out of there, and we haven't been like this for a very long time though, now since COVID. But essentially this is how we work. We've now shifted to a more work from home and remote distant working, much like Goya architects. But obviously, we were all very impressed by Goya's the way the systems that you have in place, and we all I think thrive to have something like that. So yeah, but coming back to Compartment S4, these are the kind of things that we sort of are involved in currently. We do a lot of hands-on workshops. We do some government projects as well. We do work in rural areas, and we at the same time we're also interested in more urban developer-driven projects. We're also practicing interior design and some private architecture in the urban scenario. And very recently, we've also extended our practice into more research and publications. And currently, we're also building a line of building products and furniture. So, as far as Compartment S4 goes, apart from the main projects, there are some other sort of key initiatives that we started. Handmade is one of them. Handmade is a series of workshops that we do in the rural areas. FNC, Friday Night Conversations, is a very sort of informal sort of gatherings and to facilitate conversations around the built environment and all activators of the built environment. So we invite a lot of architects, builders, and urban practitioners to come to our studio and just have a very informal conversation about anything and everything that they have been doing, and in order to build a larger community of people who share the knowledge with each other. Unmute is a biannual magazine we're currently working on. We've already put out 2 issues. It's a magazine that invites young students and young practitioners and researchers to write and publish their work with Unmute. It's a self-published magazine. We just recently came out with the first 2 editions. And yeah, with that, I'll invite Nishita to take over Handmade.
Yes, thanks, Aman. Hi, everyone. So, I'll be explaining a little bit about our handmade workshop series. So, having identified the professional neglect in interventions in rural and informal communities, we decided to uh, engage with the context in a way that we learn by doing. We learn by building with the community. So this is a workshop series where we invite students and professionals from all around to help us come to the site and help us with building. The idea is to actually explore material and construction techniques which are very much rooted in the context. Next slide. Yes, so this is one of our first projects, which is called Otla Par Gammat, which is in Badalpara village, which is situated in Gir Somnath. So as you can see, this project was an extension to a school, pre-primary school, which is known as Anganwadi, and it was as the name of the conference says, small measures, big impact. So it was a really small project with small budget, with small team, and small ideas. So this is how we started. And the project, what we did was we stayed there for a while. We were talking to the people around. We were understanding the needs of the villagers, and the idea was to build with something which was there, like present there in the village. So what we found out was there were these potters who were in the village who helped us to make these guna tiles in the roof. So can you go next? Huh. So if you see, the tiles are made by the potters, and it is a very easy to install roof. It gives you thermal insulation also, and the formwork which is there, it's also modular. So once you teach the local masons how to build that roof, it can be easily be replicated. And this was one of the building elements which we made with the community there. And along with the uh, roof and the building itself, we were also exploring with the local stones which are available in the area. And along with that, we did some landscaping which the community, can you go next? Yeah. Which the students and the community itself adapted to it. So all these colors which you see, which were done by the students and by the teachers themselves after we left the place. So the idea here is that how you leave something in your build that that the users actually adapt to it, and then they take the ownership of that place in a very small but very beautiful way. Can you go next? Next. Yes. So this is a very dear project to us. So the sequence of the project, as we show, it is also the way we have evolved in the way we think and the way we build our practice. So this was a very important project in a way because a lot of things came into place in this project. It's the project is called Lakadi Ki Kathi. Lakadi means sticks, and it's a very famous song in Hindi, Lakdi Ki Kathi, which came for the kids. It's situated in Gugukham, which is a village in a valley situated at a higher altitude than Nainital in Uttarakhand. Here too, we were building an extension to school. So the structure which you see was the existing school, and the structure besides it was our intervention, and along with it we also did some kind of activation around that area by building compost pits and some landscaping, some play elements. This was also taken as a workshop module. Can you go next? Yes. Here the village actually is very small, and along with building something, the idea is also to stay there to understand what the community requires, what the place is requiring, where are your materials coming from, how are they coming from, who is going to build it. So in a way, by staying there, you create this small little community of yourself and with them, which then sort of brings to valuable interventions. Uh, so the so we recognized that there were three problems which were there with the existing built form. One was the buildings which are constructed right now with stone were not earthquake resilient. That's why people were more preferring to build with concrete, which was changing actually the landscape of the whole valley. The second problem was there was less of water in the valley for people to use, and the third was the persistent problem of roof, because more and more they're starting to use the CGI sheets, and because of that there has been many problems. So our designs try to solve these three problems by doing small interventions like providing earthquake resilient belts at regular intervals in your stone masonry, or giving prototype for water harvesting tanks, or giving multiple layers in the roof with local materials. Next. So this is a small compilation of the video in a way the way we conducted the workshop was very organic. So we've tried to compile it and we'll try to show you. Can you please?
कुमायूं पहाड़ों के
Almost.
मेरे रास्ते और घने जंगल से गुजरते हुए पहुंचते हो कूबखाम। यहाँ से दिखते हरी भरी घाटियाँ और उसके बीच में कुछ छोटे मोटे घर, खेतों के बीच में काम करते हुए लोग और पंखियों की आवाज़। वैसे तो ये गांव में कुदरत ने सब कुछ दिया है, बस शहरों से दूर होते हुए यहाँ पे शहरीकरण नहीं पहुँच पाया है। लोगों को हमेशा यह एहसास होता है कि कब बनेंगे हमारे घर, स्कूल और रास्ते ये शहरों की तरह। तब पूरे भारत के अलग अलग जगह से कुछ विद्यार्थी ये गांव को समझ के और गांव के सहयोग से एक शिक्षा भवन का निर्माण करने की सोच लेके आए, और गांव के ये पत्थर, मिट्टी और लकड़ियां से ही बेहतरीन भवन बना सकने के काम में जुट गए। धीरे धीरे भवन का निर्माण को देखते हुए गांव में एक उत्साह सा फैल जाता है। भवन के निर्माण में कुछ कुछ बातों का बहुत करीबी से ध्यान रखा गया है, जैसे कि इमारत को भूकंप प्रतिरोधक बनाना, नज़दीकी इमारती संसाधनों का इस्तेमाल करना और जल संचारण करना। पंद्रह दिन के कम समय में बनाए हुए ये इमारत में बच्चे खेलने कूदने लगे और गांव के लोगों ने इसे अपना लिया।
'Yes. Next. So as you can see, the idea here is not to intervene in a way that you build something which is completely alien to the context, but you build in a way that people take the ownership of what you've built, and they can relate to what is happening in their village. Next. Um, yeah. So along with it, we also made a small little intervention which was there at the village square, which is the entrance of the village. They needed a new signboard for the village. So what we did was we documented their cultural stories, which included their crop cycle or harvesting cycle or folk music or the old people just telling their stories about how the village used to be, and then integrated it with built a signboard which also reflected the dominant building elements of the area. So if you go next, this is a small little clip of how it came together. ग्राम पंचायत So this actually became a point where all the tourists used to stop, take selfies, take photographs, and also halt there to eat in the shop which was there. One thing which came up was that the shopkeeper had like a lot of customers coming in because of the signboard. But otherwise, also this place became popular because there was a bird sanctuary right ahead, and yeah. Next. Yes, another project which we did in Uttarakhand was a pink toilet project, which is there in Falswari village in Pori district. So this toilet was constructed under the government scheme of pink toilet. This intervention helped us to understand how schemes like sanitation schemes like this actually end up being realized in places where there is less access to material. There's no road networks, and how do you actually build in such places? So this project was done in with the help of a lot of people who were staying there and who were in the government system. And the idea was to create something which was very familiar to them. The build was very familiar to them. So you see the small little building elements, or the color scheme, or the way it is built. It is very much reflecting their existing build form. So they don't. So it's easy for them to use it and to maintain it, because it is very necessary for a public toilet to be maintained and to be taken the ownership of. The building, along with maintaining all the requirements, it was built in a way that it is very easy to construct. So at the end, we made like a manual of how to make toilets under such scheme, and the manual was given to other villages, like the adjacent or neighboring villages who came there on the day of opening. And surprisingly, after 3-4 months, we found out that same toilets were being replicated all around the village. So then here again, you think of your position and start wondering that how can you create an impact by just giving them a booklet which is in their language, to for them to understand how to relate to creating public infrastructure. So you don't necessarily create, but you enable others to create such build form. Next. Okay, so this is also again one more project, but Aman shall take over from here.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, this is also a very interesting project. We call it Nadi Ke Parvat. It's situated right on the border of Gujarat and Maharashtra in the Sayadri Hills, in a very remote, possibly one of the most remotest villages that we've been to so far, in Khadki. Khadki is situated right in the middle of a very dense, at one point of time, very dense teak forest. So the locals over decades and centuries were trained in their vernacular method, were trained to use teak as their main building material along with mud blocks. And here we were working along with a local NGO to basically look at bamboo as a new material to construct. So this NGO had been working there for a few years when we went there, and they had introduced bamboo as a supplement to teak in for giving craft opportunities to the people, and we were sort of invited to look at it as a construction material. So if you see in this image, they're basically we what we did was this was inside their campus. We built two structures which were sort of exemplifying how one could use bamboo. So this was a more frame structure sort of a thing which was constructed out of two hip roofs, and this was a shell structure. So this was the frame structure that we for bamboo. Essentially, the idea was to sort of also look at the vernacular that they used to make out of teak, which was of a simple hip roof with four columns, and in a way visually sort of make it very simple, and the details make it very simple, so that people could just come and look at this build form and sort of replicate their houses. So this was the structure. This was also conducted as a workshop. We had a lot of students coming over here and staying with the people. So this was the pavilion. This pavilion essentially is used by the children of the campus to as an exhibition space, or sometimes as an open classroom. It's a fairly multifunctional space, and this was the bamboo tunnel sort of thing, where which was essentially just for play. This is the children sort of taking over. And yeah, this was the bamboo, the shell structure, which had a layer of lime and concrete, lime and cement. So yeah, this essentially here the idea was to look at bamboo as a material and exemplify it, and this is sort of the kids sort of taking over. I'm going to move on to another very important project. This was Resilient Homes Challenge. It was a competition hosted by UN Habitat, World Bank, and Airbnb. The competition was aimed to focus at any of disaster-prone areas, and design a module for a home in that area. So we already at this point we already had a little knowledge about the Himalayas and the kind of techniques that they've used, and like how Nishida explained Gugukam, we already knew the kind of culture, the problems, and the sort of everything that went around the vernacular. And so hence for this we had chosen Uttarkashi as our site. Uttarkashi is also one of the most earthquake prone areas in Uttarakhand. So here we were essentially, if you see, this is a render. The lower structure is a cabin structure, and the upper structure is a portal frame. The idea was to sort of create like two separate structures, which would essentially act separately in terms of an earthquake. The cabin was also thought of in a way that while working in Gukam, we realized there was a lot of waste stone, and you could only use stones which are properly cut and faced, and a lot of the other smaller stones get wasted on site, and that amounts to a lot of waste of labor and waste of money and resources. So the Gabin was also an idea towards looking at how you can use the stones which were actually not being used on sites. So the Gabin was the bottom and the portal frame above. And yeah, these are just some simple, sustainable features and resilient features that we implemented. And yeah, so we also won the competition, and we were invited to the World Bank to present this exhibit. And then simultaneously it went to the UN headquarters, and the exhibition has traveled since then. But we were sort of we really wanted to sort of try this out, like prototype it on ground to understand whether this design actually works or not. And that is when we met a few very enthusiastic local leaders from Pauri district in Uttarakhand. And along with their help and their support, so we conceptualized a tourism center for Kirsu is a small town, very famous for famous as a point to a local point for tourism, and we wanted to sort of promote that. So this was a good opportunity for us to try out the prototype that especially the construction methods that we had explored in the Resilient Homes Challenge. And this is us and our team. So this again became a handmade workshop. We invited a lot of students to come together and build the structure with us. So this was these are the Gabin walls being constructed, and this is the structure, some photographs from the construction time. These are the locals. They had also joined us in the process. There was a self-help group which was going to take over the entire structure, and they were actively also involved. There's a women self-help group. This is them, who were actively involved in the construction and also post the construction in running the center. This is how the structure is. So sorry. So basically, the structure was designed in a way that the lower ground floor was designed as a community kitchen for the tourists who would come in, and the upper floor was designed as a exhibition space that was demonstrating the local cultural heritage of Kyushu itself. And this was the day of the opening. We invited a lot of important regional leaders and philanthropists who came in to see what we were doing with the community. And this is the entire build form. As I said, this is the upper floor. Yeah, and we sort of did this like a very minimal branding for them. This is the lower structure of for the community kitchen. And yeah, this was the sort made basic packaging for them to sell the local produce. And yeah, rural narratives was the workshop that we took along with a few students and other professionals to document the local heritage. And we were looking at all sorts of things. We were looking at wildlife, and we were looking at the kind of festivals in the local area, and we were trying to document it so that the locals could look at themselves and the kind of culture that they have in a new light. So this is a panel which was focused around the women in the town, and how they were the center of the city, of everything that happened there. Yeah, and this was the opening day. This is obviously pre-COVID opening day. And yeah, we had a lot of people coming over and understanding what we had done. It was a very sort of enriching experience to finally see a lot of people understanding and trying to see what we had done. And even for us, it was a fairly holistic end to the entire process, where the role of the architect was not just in building, but we were also we were activators in and active sort of stakeholders also in this entire process. Um, yeah, so that's about. I'm just going to end on this note. So this is Unmute and FNC. This is our studio again in when at on a session of FNC. Unmute, as I said, this is the first publication that we came out with. It was focused on housing nitty-gritties, and yeah, that's about it. So essentially, like everything that we do, we sort of think about it in these three sort of words, which is engage, build, and transform. And